Greetings, everybody. Dr. Joe Dispenza here. Knowledge is the precursor to experience. And the more knowledge we have, the more prepared we are for a new event in our life. And if we can assign more meaning behind what we're doing, we always gain greater value. So I want to start off by talking about how most people live their life. It is a fact scientifically that your brain is organized to reflect everything you know in your life. Your brain is a record of all the things you've learned intellectually and all the things that you've experienced in your life. In other words, your brain is an artifact. Now, most people wake up in the morning and they think about their problems, they think about themselves, and they begin to anchor themselves into certain feelings and emotions that reaffirm their personality. And since those feelings and emotions are the end product of past experiences, because that's what emotions are, then people begin to ground themselves chemically into the past. So then they think neurologically within the circuits of their brain that are connected to the past, and they feel emotionally and chemically within the boundaries of those past experiences. And so then most people's personality or their state of being is defined by the past. And if thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, then how most people are thinking neurologically and feeling chemically are causing them to function as a predictable self tied to the past. Now, we can call that, for the most part, our past-present reality. Because once we anchor consciousness into the brain and body and into a state of being, then we could say then our behaviors, choices, the experiences that await us, and how they are going to feel will become very predictable. And so people tend to think the same thoughts, they make the same choices, they demonstrate the same behaviors that create the same experiences, all for the familiar emotion that's called the old personality or the old self. Now, this CD is about defining yourself as a vision of the future instead of a memory of the past. So then in order for you to go from the old self to the new self, one of the ingredients that helps you to do that is consciousness. Now, consciousness is awareness, and awareness is paying attention and noticing. So the more conscious you are of your unconscious self, the less unconscious you will go during the course of your day. Now, I picked two very specific times for these meditations. The first thing, when you wake up in the morning, I'm going to ask you to do the morning meditation because your brain chemistry is changing from melatonin to serotonin. And along with that, your brain waves are changing from delta to theta to alpha to beta, from your subconscious to your conscious. The door to the subconscious mind opens in the morning. So if you begin to think about a new reality for yourself, you begin to think about a new experience that you would like to have, if you begin to contemplate a new way of being, and you begin to take some time out of your busy life and think about some future experience that awaits you, the mere process of thinking and contemplation is the building process neurologically in your brain. And so we are going to ask you to think about a future reality that you may want to experience, some change in yourself that you would like to embrace, some type of event that awaits you in the quantum field. As you begin to think about and speculate a new future event, the frontal lobe turns on. That's the crowning achievement of the human being. It's the creative center. And as you begin to ask the what-if questions, the speculative questions, what would it be like? How would it be? What future awaits me? What do I want? As you ask those frontal lobe questions, because the frontal lobe is connected to all other parts of the brain, like a great symphony leader, it begins to look out over the entire landscape of the brain and it begins to select different networks of neurons that are connected to the things you've learned intellectually and the things that you've experienced as an event in your life. As the frontal lobe begins to call up all these different circuits, it begins to seamlessly piece them together to create a new level of mind. And as you begin to remind yourself of that future event, there'll come a moment when you'll get a vision or a symbol or a picture in your mind, and we would call that an intention. And as you begin to force your brain to fire in new sequences and new patterns and new combinations, you're beginning to reorganize the circuitry in your brain to begin to change the brain to look like that future event has already occurred. Now, your brain is no longer a record of the past. Now, in fact, it is a map to the future. As you begin to be defined by that vision of the future, you're moving into a future present reality. But that's not the end. Because in order for you to move into a new state of being, you either have to begin to experience the event emotionally. In other words, allow the thought to become the experience in your mind. And if thought becomes the experience in your mind, the end product of that experience is called a feeling or an emotion. Or, I'm going to ask you to teach your body emotionally how that future event is going to feel before it occurs. And as you begin to combine that clear intention with an elevated emotion of gratitude or joy or inspiration, of feeling unlimited, of feeling empowered, your body as the unconscious mind begins to believe and accept that it's living in that future reality in the present moment, and you're beginning to activate and signal new genes in new ways so that your body is now living in the future instead of the past. So as the body moves into a new future present reality, your biology begins to change because now you're in a new state of being. Once you're in this new state of being, I'm going to ask you to think about the choices you're going to make, to review the behaviors you're going to demonstrate during this day. One day, one lifetime. What experiences await you and how they would feel. And as you begin to mentally rehearse what that future day is going to be like, the hardware program in your brain by repetition, nerve cells that fire together, wire together, begin to change into a software program. In other words, you're able to reproduce that level of mind easier and easier each day. I'm also going to ask you from this elevated state of being to remind yourself who you no longer want to be, to become conscious of the choices you're not going to make in that day, because the hardest part about change is not making the same choices you did the day before. And the other difficulty about change is that we go unconscious.